Chess friends, I hope you are doing well. The Kaiser Chess Engine is a highly technical and statistical female chess AI, known for her tactical prowess and masterful playing style. Today, I played against her at a level of 4000 Elo, and she sacrificed her queen and rook in a game that was both astonishing and delightful. So, let's get started without wasting any time. The game began with d4, and we entered the Indian game when I played e6, preparing for d5, she played knight f3, not knight c3. To avoid the bishop b4 pin on the knight, I had the option to consider d5, but I opted for b6 to develop my bishop on b7, consequently, I played bishop a6, attacking the pawn along the diagonal. After b3 and d5, which put pressure on the pawn, Kaiser responded normally. Playing bishop before check was the best move. However, I considered playing c4, which would move her knight to e5, attacking and opening up the bishop's diagonals simultaneously, so, I decided to go with tactics and played bishop before check. Some of you might consider blocking the check by moving your pieces, like the bishop or knight, but, if you block the check with your bishop, I can easily capture the pawn on b3. This move sacrifices both the bishop and the rook but creates positional weaknesses in your setup. After you capture my bishop, I can play the cunning move b2, attacking the rook. As the knight moves, I can promote not to a queen but to a bishop. You might capture the rook on a8. But queen takes b4 will attack both the knight and the bishop simultaneously. This position will be advantageous for me, even though both sides have an equal number of pieces. You will lose because knight d3 cannot protect your position at all since the bishop can capture it, and I can then pick up your bishop. The position will favor me. Returning to the position, Kaiser knows that blocking the check with either the bishop or the knight would create a disadvantageous position for her, which is why she slides back her king. As the bishop moves back, noticing that the rook on a8 is under attack, the worst thing is that you cannot capture it. If you do, then I can capture your knight on e5, your pawn is pinned to the queen, and e3 would face c takes b3, checking the king. This position will be disadvantageous for her, giving some counterplay to black, so, instead of capturing the rook, she decided to play more brilliantly, showcasing her style and smile. I tried knight d5 to block the bishop's attack, and she attacked my bishop on d6, but this move did not damage me. After bishop b2, she prepared to invade the center with e4 and e5, strengthening her position. However, playing e4 is not correct because it puts pressure and dominates the center. Thinking that e5 would block and trap the bishop is a misunderstanding because I can capture the pawn on e5, which is well protected by the knight and also creates pressure on the d4 pawn. The knight cannot capture the bishop, because it is pinned to the king, giving me a significant advantage. In this position, she tried h4 because she is a fan of attacking the king side, where I was preparing to castle short. My center was well fortified, and my pieces were positioned centrally with many pawns. Therefore, I decided to go with f5, making the game more challenging. The pawn protects the squares on e4 and g4, allowing the knight to move there and increase dominance in the center. It also prepares for queen f6 and castling, opening up the file for the rook, which is very advantageous for me. So, she developed her knight on d2, following some moves and captures on d6. We have e4 striking in the center immediately. After the knight reaches the e4 square, her plan becomes clear. She wants to include her knight on g5 to attack the pawn. Whether it's queen h5 or queen c2, both moves aim to invade and attack the h7 pawn, as the dark square bishop is also positioned to disrupt my king's side. This is akin to a politician being exposed by the media, and the opposing party. After queen d7, knight g5 comes on the board to accomplish this plan. Both queen c2 and queen h5 can be very effective, therefore, playing g6 is an insufficient move because h5 can come, exerting significant pressure on h5. This is why I decided to play h6 to kick out the knight, but the queen quickly moves to g4. Capturing the knight is not the best move because she can respond with bishop takes d5. The point of this move is that my e-pawn is pinned to the queen, forcing the bishop to retreat to c8. Consequently, the queen will arrive at f7, and the rook has to come to f1 to protect the pawn. Since the queen is creating substantial pressure on the f2 pawn, d5 should be considered. Then, after capturing the pawn on g5, it will open the file for the rook, creating a crucial advantage, as the queen can join to paralyze the black king completely. Returning to the position, we see that capturing my knight is not an option because Kaiser is a very brilliant player. She handles her knight tactically, and her weaknesses are also tactical. Rook f5 follows in the game, trying to protect the 5th rank. After rook e1, rook to e8, and queen e2, there is a vulnerable attack on the e6 pawn. At this point, playing bishop h3 would be a very bad move, which she didn't play in the game, because now I can capture the knight on g5. Consequently, rook takes g5 can happen, and despite white having an open h-file, my king can easily escape through the e7 square and hide, leaving white without sufficient pieces to attack. So, let me inspire you by sharing a beautiful quote. You gain strength, courage, and confidence by every experience in which you really stop to look fear in the face. You must do the thing which you think you cannot do. In this position, she tried knight e4 to eliminate my knight because the knight on f6 is crucial for defending my king's side, so, I played knight d5 to secure its position since the knight's health insurance isn't filled out yet. Bishop h3 comes to invade and attack along the diagonal on the e6 pawn. As the rook moves, we have bishop g4 with the idea of playing bishop h5, attacking the rooks simultaneously. Playing knight to f6 to kick out the bishop or prevent it from coming to h5 is a very poor move because I can respond with knight takes f6, forcing you to capture it, and then d5 will come, a very strategic and genius move. Have you ever seen a genius? If not, look at me and chess engines. We are so genius that you can consider me a super genius. Look at this position, the e6 pawn is under attack by most of the pieces, the bishop diagonal is opened up, and you can't push your pawn forward because you would lose your queen. The knight is also under attack, creating a decisive advantage for white. So, returning to the position, noticing that knight f6 is not possible, I decided to go with rook e7. This resembles a hedgehog defense. My position is like that of a rabbit, with all my pieces trying to control the center. The bishop is stuck behind the pawn, and I have no attacking chances. This creates a significant weakness in my position, so, rook h2 was followed by h3, f3, and then the queen slid over. I decided to maneuver my knight to d7 through f6. And I subsequently moved my bishop back to c8 to strengthen my structure, but she played a very cunning move that shocked the world, and even shocked me, knight g5. This brilliant move poses a threat on the h7 square. The odd thing is that you cannot capture the knight because, after the capture, the file will open, making queen h7 check unstoppable. The king cannot escape to f7 due to bishop h5 check, and moving to a8 would lead to a simple checkmate. The game would be over in just 25 moves, thus, you have to play g6, afterwards, the rook will follow, and queen h5 will threaten h8, forcing the king to leave his home square. After a check, bishop h5 will follow, leading to a completely devastating position for you. The rook will be under attack, forcing the king to run, and resulting in checkmate. Returning to the position, we see that pawn takes knight is not possible, which is why knight f6 is played. Bishop h5 follows to attack the rook. And some might consider knight takes bishop, which seems reasonable. However, queen h7 followed by queen h8 will come, leading to checkmate. You need to think beyond your immediate move and prepare for the king's safety, defense, and attacks. Still, you cannot capture the knight on g5, and you know the reason well. As the rook moves and the bishop comes to g6, you still cannot capture the knight on g5. Let me show you the variation, because not everyone is as genius and brilliant as I am. It attacks the knight. As the knight moves, you might argue that the queen cannot come to h7, but if Magnus Carlsen were playing as white in this position, he would make a sigma male move, rook to h8 check, sacrificing the rook. After the capture, the queen would simultaneously come to h7. If you think the queen cannot come to h7, you are mistaken. So, let me tell you a precious quote about life. The only people who deserve to be in your life are the ones who treat you with love, kindness, and respect. Returning to the position, as I mentioned Magnus Carlsen, on my other channel, I made a particular video of Magnus Carlsen playing against Hikaru. That game was just brilliant. You can check out that video, and at the present moment, the rook file might open, which is why knight a6 is played to create some counterplay. Queen d2 followed by g4 occurs. After a couple of moves, we have knight d5 attacking the queen and preparing for knight f4 to create counterplay. We have a bishop check, the king moves back, and the queen comes to d2. This position is just advantageous for her. All of her pieces are in attacking mode. The rook is so active, the knight is also active, which is why I decided to go with knight f4 to reduce some of her attacks. g6 is coming to lock down the bishop and attack it afterward. As the bishop moves back, we have bishop a6. I mean, when one Jack Sparrow goes away, another Jack Sparrow becomes the leader of the army. The knight comes to h7, and as the rook moves, we have g5, a very tactical move with the potential idea of opening up the h-file. Blocking the attack might be considered, but g6 will come, making the rook vulnerable. The rook also cannot move to f5 because it will be attacked by the bishop, leading to a loss of exchange. This is why I decided to go with knight h5. After the capture and recapture, we have d5. She used her bishop like a sniper, striking with precision. As the pawn moves, the queen on h6 lies in wait, the king might be at risk, and the knight is also under attack. So, noticing this, I decided to play rook takes h7. At this juncture, as the rook moves to h7, what should white consider in this position? Notice that the queen cannot move to f6 because of the knight, and the rook is creating vulnerable attacks on the queen. Simultaneously, the bishop is blocked by the pawn, and although the other bishop has an open file, it is unnecessary. So, what should white consider in this position? Think a little and consider the possibilities. The brilliant move, which some of you may find, is rook takes e5, sacrificing the rook right away. After you capture, be5 will follow, checking the black king. As the king moves, bishop takes h7 will come, followed by rook check, knight blocks, and forcing the king to move. At this juncture, you can see that the 7th rank is completely blocked by the rook, which is why the king has to move, and after some checks, queen to f7 will lead to a checkmate. So, going back to the position, we see that x5 is not possible. It is a complete rook sacrifice, a brilliant move. Can you even imagine that move? You cannot capture my queen on h6 either because there is a very brilliant tactical move from white's side. Let's treat this like a chess puzzle. Think about what white should consider to win the game. Notice that the bishop pair has an open file, and the rook can come into action. Try to think and comment on what white should consider. Alright, going back to the position, we have rook g7 check. Kaiser blocks it with her rook, putting pressure on the rook. Still, you cannot capture my queen because I can capture the knight on the h5 square. The rook is under attack, and you might be tempted to capture the rook on h5. Then bishop takes g7 will come, forcing the king to move. Then, the usual move bishop f6 will come with a discovered attack on the queen and king simultaneously on the board, and you will lose the game very soon. Returning to the position, we saw that rook takes rook is not possible. After e8 happened in the game, captures and recaptures occurred. Rook takes h7 follows, putting pressure on the knight. After some checks and moves, we have rook takes g7. Now, Kaiser has a passed pawn on the h-file. She has two rooks against my one queen and a bishop against a bishop. However, she has great positional advantages because the bishop c4 move protects her structure, and the rooks protect her king side. After some moves, we have rook takes h7 check. You can see how the bishop is protecting the rooks. She is tempted to push the pawn on the h-file. After some checks, rook takes e6 occurs to checkmate me by playing rook e8. I decided to go with queen e1. A few moves later, we have bishop c8 to pin down the rook, but this doesn't bring any advantages for me. After captures, she gets another passed pawn on the e-file. It is completely winning for her. After a couple of queen checks, bishop h7 checkmates me, and I lost the game against her. That was a very brilliant game by Kaiser. She is a brilliant player like Leela Zero and my best friend. I hope you enjoyed the game very much. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Wishing you all the best. Bye bye, see ya.